Now we can talk to Diana Buttu, who's a former advisor to the Palestine Liberation Organization, and she joins us now live from Haifa. Thank you very much indeed for taking some time to talk to us, and perhaps you can explain to us what you think, which stage of this crisis are we in? We've got scared people in Gaza, we've got scared people in parts of Israel, and we've got the prospect of an intensification of military activity. How much further can this go?
Well, this is the real question. The real question is whether the international community is going to be willing to act. Already, by Israel's own statements, they've dropped 400 tons of bombs on the Gaza Strip. And I think it's important to keep in mind who exactly makes up the population of the Gaza Strip. We've got 1.6 million Palestinians, 80% of whom are refugees, and 43% of them are under the age of 14. So at the end of the day, what Israel's doing is it's bombing a refugee, stateless child population. And I'm surprised that the international community is continuing to let this be carried out.
And Israel, of course, says that its prime responsibility is the protection of its own civilians. And as we've just heard from our correspondent, there have been at least 90 rockets fired into Israel, of course, petrifying the population, if not causing as much human damage.
There's been no human damage to Israel. And in terms of petrifying is very different from actual bombs being dropped on your head. Now, the real question is who's standing there and protecting Palestinians? Just as Israel says that it's unacceptable for them to be living under this situation, so too it's untenable for Palestinians who've been living under these attacks now for decades. It's important to keep in mind that this isn't a question of two equal states just fighting it out. This is a question of a Palestinian population that is stateless, refugee, that doesn't have an army, and is living under Israel's military rule. Even the United Nations has called on Israel's action as illegal, and it's time for the international community to step up and start protecting the Palestinian people rather than simply demanding that only Israel is entitled to security.
And the international community have been decidedly quiet, haven't they, this time round? We've had scant word, if you like, from Washington, and the United Nations has already been rebuked somewhat for having a fairly lukewarm diplomatic statement.
Yes, of course, and one can only imagine if the situation had been the reverse. If it were Israelis who were dying at the hands of Palestinians, you would see an immediate condemnation. But the fact of the matter is that the United Nations simply does not want to act because the United States does not want to act, and it really calls into question the international legal system. When you have a system in which one country is allowed to act above the law and treat the Palestinians as though they are beneath the law, then there's something very wrong with the international system, and this is what leads Palestinians to believe that they can only take matters into their own hands.
Diana Buttu, former advisor to the Palestinian Liberation Organization, thank you very much indeed for talking to us here at Al Jazeera.